And now, ladies and gentlemen, right to your host of this House of Musicians, Barry Smith.
Hey, good evening, fine listener, and welcome to this House of Musicians radio show right here on Reality Radio 101. We hope you enjoy the next hour with us as we do our small part to help promote musicians, bands, and of course, Gary, venues. Gary Labar, how are you this evening?
I'm very excited this evening, let me tell you that.
And as am I. We have Barney Bentall and Geoffrey Kelly. Barney's loved globally for his band, the legendary Hearts, that over 10 years in the 80s and 90s had more than 9 hit singles, won Juno Awards, and achieved platinum status for multiple albums. He went on to release acclaimed albums as a solo artist, and more lately has been part of bluegrass influence, folk band, and high bar gang. And Geoffrey Kelly has 5 gold and 3 platinum albums as one of the primary songwriters and Spirit of the West leaders of the absolute Canadian folk rock sound of the 90s. One of Canada's finest Celtic musicians. He's most recently been performing with the Irish Rovers and as and one of the Paperboys as well, known for songs that blends Celtic folk with bluegrass and world music influences. Guys, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. How are you both?
We're good.
Great. Absolutely great.
Good to hear that, and an absolute pleasure again to have you on the show. I know you guys have a new album out, Ranch Riders, released September 17th, 2020, and 2021, and we're looking forward to playing 2 songs off that album, and then, of course, discussing it as well. I'd like to start, if you don't mind, Geoffrey, with you and ask you how you're influenced by music. You're a multi-instrumentalist and have done so much stuff in your music career. I'm curious to how you're influenced by music and possibly what the first instrument was you learned.
Wow. Well, I was a late comer to performing music, but I certainly got the bug of music when I was a teenager. Like a lot of teenagers, I discovered music probably by about grade 9 or 10. And my first real love, and still kind of an ongoing love, is and was prog rock. I discovered Genesis and Yes and Gentle Giant and Pink Floyd and all those British prog bands of the 70s, and that kind of set my course as a real record collector and music fanatic. And but it wasn't until I was about 23 in the late 70s, early 80s when I started. When I kind of discovered Irish music and traditional Celtic music, and the first instrument I ever played, besides the recorder in elementary school, was a tin whistle, and that kind of opened the doors for me to get involved locally, playing with Irish musicians that would meet casually and just play tunes. And I started learning tunes, and I got very into the whole folk music thing, especially the Celtic side of things. And I eventually volunteered at the Vancouver Folk Festival and met a whole pile of traveling musicians there. And I just got quite obsessed with the whole thing, started collecting a lot of that music as well. And then shortly after that, in about 1984, we started Spirit of the West back then. But I wish I'd started playing music when I was a lot younger, but I've always loved it, and I've always been a collector. As Barney will attest to, my house is pretty much full of CDs and records, and still is my number one hobby.
Oh, that's amazing. And same with me. I just gave all my CDs to my cousin because he's collecting them, but I have tons of vinyl albums as well that I collect. It's such a great hobby, and we're always looking for the better vinyl albums that we can find. So and I collect a lot of actual picture discs and colored vinyl as well. That's one of my hobbies as well. So good for you. And Barney, how about you? How old were you when you were influenced by music, or maybe possibly started playing your first instrument?
Well, it's interesting to think back at that. I mean, I know it was pretty captivating as a very young kid when I saw the Beatles, for instance. But I'm a little bit like Geoffrey. I played piano and trumpet growing up. I always took music lessons, but I got an acoustic guitar, I think, in grade 9, and took a few lessons from this guy called Cowboy Slim, and I was definitely captivated by that. And around that time, I became such a fan of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and it's probably why I still use Martin guitars to these days, to this day. And I don't know, I just started working at it and playing and writing the odd song, and then I had a brief stint at University of Calgary. I didn't last all that long, a couple of years, but I would play at open mic night there, and then we'd start putting bands together and working on writing songs. And at a certain point, I think my early 20s, moved out to Vancouver. It at that point in time, trying to get a musical career started in Calgary was kind of out of the question. Whereas now, lots of bands come from everywhere. But back then, you had to, I think, either head to Vancouver or Toronto, and I had more connections in Vancouver, so I went there, and we started having a family, and just really pursuing this like crazy sort of impossible life where you're playing in the clubs and you're raising kids and you're just working at your craft and really trying to get a record deal. And it was at that time, before we had record deals, that Geoffrey and his wife Allie and my wife Kath and myself and John, man, we all, it was a pretty small, tight knit community, musical community back then, in the early 80s. And it's so diverse and such a large musical community now, but back then it was everybody knew each other, and there you might get teased by a band like DOA for being some sort of like ensemble, but everybody kind of knew each other, and it was really wonderful time back then. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely. Who were you influenced by growing up? Like what music were you listening to? I know Geoffrey said he was got into Irish music and that Celtic music as well, but any bands in particular? Or I know Geoffrey also said the Beatles. You'd be surprised, guys, how many artists come on this show and mention the Beatles as what really turned all their heads.
Well, but I have to tell you, I think my biggest influence back then was the band. I just did 4 shows in Alberta with my son and Colin Linden and Jimmy Rankin and others. It was called The Last Waltz Remembered. We've done it before. We play songs from the movie, the record, The Last Waltz, and then some of our own songs. And it's always such an honor and thrill to do that. And the very first record I got, I bet you I think when I look back at it, I think I was 12 years old, and I bought the band's second record. I would have been 12 or 13. It was my first long record. And it was their second record with the brown cover. And, I was so captivated by their look and their image. And then when I dropped the needle, and it was, on my mom and dad's console kind of record player, and heard Standing By Your Window in Pain, Pistol in Your Hand, and the way that record unfolded, it was such a profound influence, and I think is really continues to, I still listen to it and I go, oh my God, this is so good. And clearly back then, all the cream of the crop of musicians, whether it was Elton John or the Beatles, or they were all sort of in awe of these guys, Eric Clapton. So it started there, and Bob Dylan and the Rolling Stones. I wasn't as much into the prog rock as Geoffrey was, although I appreciate it greatly now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to let me ask Geoffrey this. How did you meet Barney, and how long have you guys known each other?
Well, we pretty much met through our wives. My wife, Allie, and Barnes' wife, Kath, were at theater school together. And they were actually at theater school with John Mann, the lead singer who ended up being the lead singer for Spirit of the West all those years ago. And we kind of met around then. And I recall Barney was in a band called Brandon Wolf back then, and they were recording at Little Mountain Studios, a lovely studio here in Vancouver. And I remember going there and being so fascinated by being in a studio. As a record collector, I don't think I'd ever been in one. I think that might have been the first time I'd actually been in a recording studio. And that had a huge impact on me. I remember leaving there thinking, God, that's got to be the ultimate thing, to spend time making a record, spend a month or whatever it was in a studio making a record. Just seemed like heaven to me, even though I didn't really play an instrument at that time, or I was just beginning. So we kind of met around then, and we used to go to each other's gigs in the early days. Once we had the very beginnings of Spirit of the West happening, we'd play local pubs, and we'd go and see each other play. And it sort of started then. And then when it came time to make our first record, Barn was the one person we knew that actually had a studio, and we felt comfortable enough to work with him as our producer to make our first record at his studio all those years ago, back in 1984. So we met before then, but I think our friendship really deepened once we got into doing that record together, and so it's been a long time since we've really actually worked on records. I think we've dabbled here and there. I might have played on a song or so for Barn over the years, but the Ranch Riders thing just sort of happened kind of about 3 years ago. So it was a big, huge chunk where we were both pursuing our own careers, and we'd see each other socially more than musically. We certainly maintained our friendship with the two families, and that was something that happened all the time. But musically, we didn't really get a chance to do that much together. We would talk a lot about music, and get excited about new albums by this band or that band or this artist. But it really has taken all those years for us to actually get together to actually make a record, which is why this record, I think, is kind of special for both of us.
Absolutely. And 40 plus years as friends. Who came up with the idea? I'm interested to know how it kind of took place. Who came up with the idea to do Ranch Riders?
Well, I think...
go ahead, Barn.
Well,
no, I was going to say, I think it's Barn. I think it was Barn's idea, really, but I'll let you tell the story.
And let me just add, sorry to cut you off, guys. Let me just add, sometimes the two stories could be different. So, Barney, do you recall meeting Geoffrey in the studio as well, or is there somewhere else that you met him? Sometimes the stories can be
that's very accurate.
Accurate, good.
Yeah, his memory is probably better than mine at this point. But I do want to mention something that Geoffrey has been so influential in terms of exposing me to all sorts of wonderful music. Some of it obscure, some of it known, but just at the end of the day, it's quality stuff. And he's really been a very key part of, I would say, my musical education. As far as Ranch Riders, I mean, I would attribute Geoffrey the idea. I mean, perhaps the idea of actually making it a record. That's something I was kind of so excited about what we were doing. I thought, let's see if we can capture this. But these songs, and it's in our bio. But Geoffrey has been working in an open tuning, a particular one that is on all these songs. And he would just come up, with these seeds and these fantastic ideas, and we'd be hanging out socially rather than doing something, frivolous like playing Monopoly. We would, that's all fine and good. But we would do what we love doing, and that's playing music, and all these little pieces of instrumental tunes started to take form. And then, that's what I just really credit Geoffrey of being the, sort of the catalyst to get that started. And then during the pandemic when it just so happened that an engineer that I used for my last record, John Ram, wonderfully talented guy from Vancouver, was heading up to record Ferris and Jason Romero in near where our ranch is. So, and he approached me. He called and said, would you like to do anything? He's going to be heading up to this area with a whole bunch of gear. And that's when Geoffrey and I talked about it and said, well, why don't we imagine we could do a fair bit of damage in 3 days. Let's give it a try. And that's what happened last October. I mean, so really it's getting close to, I guess it's close to a year ago, Geoffrey?
Yeah.
And you guys got together, did a song, and then said maybe we should do a whole album, or was there a plan to do the whole album first?
No, I would say once Barn thought that we could do a record, and it might be these little seeds, as he mentioned, had developed enough. I think we kind of always felt it would be a record and not just the song. And I think once we got it in our heads that we were going to do a record, and we were starting to organize things with John Ram, with our drummer Jeff Hicks, and have people come up to the ranch. Barn really wanted to do it right in the cabin, and I thought that was the most wonderful idea. So we got our act together then, and we did put together a couple of the songs down here on the coast, but primarily the seeds of everything began either by the creek and Barney's ranch, or in the cabin at Barney's ranch, or somewhere on the property where we just sit outside and play guitars, and then we just record things on our phones and develop them and add parts to them. And so I think we always knew it was going to be a full record, although it's not like a really long album. There's the pieces, some of them are as short as like 2 minutes. So, but we ended up with 12 of them all together by the time we were done, and we probably had a few that we didn't fully realize that maybe we'll have for somewhere down the road, and probably lots of new ideas. But it just was it was the most organic thing that all of this took over 2 or 3 years of us visiting up at the ranch and just playing guitars. And then eventually we thought, hey, we should do something with these. And that's when Barn said we should make a record. And it was the most exciting moment, because we would have been quite content just to keep doing that year after year, go up and play guitars and not really worry about whether it was a record or not. But once we decided, yes, we're going to do it, it got very exciting. And we've got so many great friends that we got involved in adding little parts here and there that it was just a joy to put the whole thing together.
Absolutely. And the one of the quotes is, there's no agenda, no pressure to come up with thoughtful, meaningful lyric. The truth to be told, it's quite liberating. So it's nice just to have the music speak for itself. Was it weird though? Maybe not weird. Is that the right word? Was it different for you guys not to have lyrics on the songs?
I'd say probably more so for Barn. As who's really known as a unique, wonderful character singer, to just be on an album where he doesn't sing, it was probably a stranger for him. I'm sort of more used to, being involved in instrumental music somewhat, but
right, sure.
I think and even that kind of evolved. I mean, I think at one point we thought, hey, it's maybe going to be half instrumental and half songs, and then it was maybe mostly instrumental with a couple of songs. Then we just went, you know what? There's nothing wrong with making it all instrumental, and it just kind of went that way.
And Barney, go ahead, bud.
Well, I found it so liberating and fun. And there was almost no adjustment in my mind at all. Only kind of relief and I love singing on records now, but I remember back in the day, it was kind of a pressure cooker, because the way you tended to record, you get all your beds and you get everything done, the overdubs, and then you go in to do the lead vocals for real. And it was a bit of a pressure cooker. Like I say, it doesn't feel that way now, but there's part of me that just really enjoyed being an instrumentalist in a band. And again, it was very freeing. There was no I loved the whole process.
Yeah, sure. And with, no clock, no deadline, no agenda, just as it goes, having no deadline is a wonderful thing, because it certainly makes it a little freer to be able to write and maybe even change stuff if there's something you didn't like. But let me ask you this, Barney, when you guys, is it a lot different to be on your ranch outside by a creek? I mean, obviously the songs would be maybe different if you were sitting in a studio at a desk compared to being outside, liberated by all of the beautiful surroundings where you live. Definitely had some impact on the songwriting.
I think it did, but I also feel when you're talking about the no deadline, once we decided to make a record, and there was a time when the people were going to come up with the equipment that really focuses you. And it's just like when you're putting a band together, you booking a gig is the best thing you could do for yourself. It's like you've got to rise to that occasion. So that, then we worked on additional stuff, or finishing the structure of the songs, some of that in Vancouver, and I don't know. I feel kind of comfortable writing wherever I am. I don't know if I haven't really analyzed this to any great degree, but I could be by the creek, and sure, that's wonderfully inspirational. And sometimes we would work in the ranch house, and everybody would be laughing and socializing, and we'd be doing what I've often been accused of over the course of my life, completely blanking the rest of the world out. Well, I just focused on Geoffrey, and I think we both have that ability. I kind of think there's something nice about that ability, but it's probably pretty frustrating sometimes for the people you live with. But where you can just blank it out, and all this noise could be happening, and we would just work on the songs, and some of the little demos, like the voice memo type demos you do on your phone, are hilarious. Like the laughter and what's going on in the background is equally as loud as the music, but you can tell we're just kind of zeroing in of, how does that passage work? Does that work? How do we turn that corner? Does that work? And do we need a bridge? All that stuff. It was, really quite a, just I look back at it, and I mean, I'm so happy that the fact that True North Records decided to release this. We had no expectation for this. It's and if I can just add one more thought, I think as far as making it a complete instrumental record, I loved the record by Alexandra Strelinsky. It's primarily piano instrumental record. It got a lot of notice. I guess this was the year before the pandemic, and I just thought it was so great. I could put that record on and just kind of in the best possible way zone out and let my mind go. So I think that's what we kind of wanted to try and achieve here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think you guys did. What a great album it is. Let's do this, guys. Let's play a song off the album. We'll come back and talk about it, because we're going to do two songs. Let's play this first one, and I'd like to come back and ask you guys some questions about it. How does that sound?
Great.
Sounds good.
Awesome, folks. I have Barney Bentall and Geoffrey Kelly on the show this evening. Sorry, fellas. I'm stuttering a little bit here, but have them on this House of Musicians radio show this evening. And they have a new album out called Ranch Writers. We're going to listen to Bonaparte Plateau right now, and then we'll come back and talk about it right here on Reality Radio 101. Welcome back, folks. I have Barney Bentall and Geoffrey Kelly on the show this evening. Pleasure to have you guys both. We just, you guys have a new album out called Ranch Riders, with an all-instrumental album and just great musicians all along the board on that album. We just heard Bonaparte Plateau. Let me ask Barney where this song came from and how you guys came up with this.
Well, it just a lot of the names of the titles of the songs are just kind of location based up in this region, and there's a whole sort of Bonaparte river system. I don't know what the genesis of that, how it got named Bonaparte. I'm not thinking it would be after Napoleon here, but I don't know. It was just another one. All these just ideas, Geoffrey would tend to come with what about this? And we would just start kind of jamming away at the idea. It's a little different from a song that would have lyrics. I don't know. I don't know what Geoffrey would say there.
Yeah, I would say that's very true. That's one of the joys of instrumental music. You can kind of name them whatever you want.
Yeah.
And often the names would just a couple of the songs on the album have just names from the actual iPhone demos where we would just so we'd remember roughly what they were. Maybe there was some, like the next song we're going to play, Fred Neil. It always reminded me of the American folk singer Fred Neil. So we just called it that on the iPhone recording just so we knew which one we were talking about. And it just kind of stuck and stayed with that one. Whereas a couple of the other ones sort of changed. And I think Bonaparte probably had a different name at one point, but I think the name really suits it, because I think there's a certain sort of elegance in both the song and the name. Like Bonaparte Plateau is an intriguing couple of words, and I think it fits well with the music. And so that it's, yeah, but there's no real rhyme or reason as to the names. As Barn said, it's the drive up from Vancouver to the ranch. You go through some incredible countryside, real beautiful British Columbia, and a lot of the, as he said, a lot of the tunes are named for some of the landmarks and spots along the way in getting up to the ranch, and it just seemed very fitting.
Absolutely, and what a great name it is indeed. I want to ask you guys, do you have any plans, maybe Geoffrey, do you have any plans of, I can see you guys on stage maybe doing a small tour talking about both of your lives or your friendships over the last 40 years, playing by the time you guys talk to the audience about stories of you two, like you say, you were apart or you never saw each other for a while, but you have been friends for over 40 years, and you could probably make a whole concert, an hour and a half, out of playing these songs and talking. Do you guys have any plans of doing something like that?
Yeah, it's the timing of the music business is maybe not perfect here, just coming out of slowly coming out of the whole pandemic thing. I don't think the wheels are really in motion fully for doing tours and things yet. We've each been doing little things here and there, but we certainly would love to put together some kind of concerts here and there if it works for both of us, and it would be fun if it was partly telling stories and playing a few songs and maybe dipping into some of the stuff we've done in the past. And yeah, I think we could definitely create an interesting evening if the opportunity arose.
Agreed.
I completely
go ahead, Barney.
I think we're definitely gonna do something live with this. I think it'll be wonderful. Somebody's leaving the ranch here. I'll be right. Geoffrey, you'll have to answer a question. I'll be right back.
Sure.
Okay?
No worries.
There you go. Geoffrey,
he's on a working ranch after all.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's totally acceptable. And there's always something going on. I'm sure you guys are both very, very busy. Let me ask you this, Geoffrey. What is one of your favorite songs to play live on stage?
we haven't, from this album, we haven't really done any of that, but boy, going back.
Yeah, I just mean in general.
In general, oh, well, I'd have to say, it used to change a lot. We did a symphony record.
Yep. Are you still there, Geoffrey?
Yeah, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yep. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the other day, someone had posted a clip from a song we did with the Vancouver Symphony Orchestra many years ago. And I had forgotten completely about this song. And it was weird watching us, Spirit of the West, play the song with the symphony. That was back in the early to mid-'90s. And so I was reminded of that song, which we haven't played for years. It was a tune called Strange Bedfellows. But I would say I never tired of playing, Home for Rest or Venice is Sinking or any of our popular songs. I know some artists say that, it's almost like an obligation. They have to do it because the people who have come to see the show would demand to hear that song. I've never felt that. I think we just always enjoyed just seeing a happy audience, and we enjoyed playing pretty much everything. And towards the end, we didn't change our set very much. We stuck to the same sort of, chose from roughly 20, 25 songs and kept it very much the same from night to night. And just because those are the songs that people really came to hear. So we had no problem doing that.
I think that, great. That's great, Barney. Welcome back, my friend. I think that's important. We'll include Barney now into what we were talking about, Geoffrey, but I think it's important a lot. There are some bands that have been pretty stubborn in their touring and said, we're not playing anything old. We're going to play stuff off the new album. People shake their heads. The audience can't believe it. So I agree that it's important to have a set list that includes playing all the songs that people love.
Yeah. So it certainly worked for us, and I would feel really weird I think we might have tried that at one point, like being very stubborn about it, and it maybe lasted 2 or 3 shows, and then we bailed on that and then went back to playing a mixture of what people wanted to hear with a couple of new. It's always fun playing a couple of new things, but we figured finding a right balance was important.
I agree. Yeah. And Barney, same with you. You've liked to play all the songs that people want to listen to as well when you tour.
I do. I mean, I've never wanted to be any kind of nostalgia act. It's all about, I like to continue to make records and do new and interesting things and keep learning. I mean, Ranch Riders is a perfect example. But I always, play the songs, that, hey, I'm grateful for these songs. I'm sure Geoffrey feels the same way. I know there was a certain point in my life that I felt that I had to quit for the sake of the family. And a song like Something to Live For, the Come Back to Me, those very songs, they gave me a life in music that continues to this day. So there's certain songs I think you don't feel connected to anymore from your past, and then those kind of fall by the wayside. But I think you have to. That's what people want to hear. But I just try and walk the line, play new stuff, and keep challenging myself, and then play some of the old hits. I really think. Hopefully we can get out there and tour for this thing, because I think it would make such a great concert, to have this music and then a combination of Spirit of the West songs and my songs. I think it'd be fantastic. So we have yet to fly that up the flagpole, but we'll see. I know there's been talk about it, so.
I certainly hope that happens. It'd be great to see you guys out touring. I know, like Geoffrey said, and we all agree that it's definitely a little early for that. There are some bands, I know in the States, I know they're going crazy, but here we're kind of taking it easy a little bit. There are the odd shows here and there with social distancing and whatnot going on. So it's kind of starting back up, but who knows what the future holds. So hopefully you guys will be able to get out and do something. We'd love to come and see you. Barney, I asked Geoffrey this. Out of all the songs that you play on stage, which is your favorite to play? Do you have one? And does it change?
You mean of my old stuff?
Any song at all that's you're playing live on stage for an audience, what's one of your favorite songs to play?
Oh, of the old ones, I still quite enjoy. I still enjoy playing "Something to Live For." Come back to me.
Absolutely.
Some of the songs off Gin Palace, "Oh Shelley," Gin Palace. Those I still get a joy out of playing them, and I think it's partly because I just haven't relied. I've kept, putting out new records, and of course, there's people. A person might come up to you and go, "Oh, you're still playing? I didn't know what happened to you." but that's that's just more to do with how much traffic there is out there in terms of music. So you just keep doing what you're doing, and then that makes me enjoy playing that old material.
Absolutely. Why not? Yes, of course. And just like you say, to be able to continue to play music year after year is just astonishing for any musician, especially if you can get a half decent crowd out. It's so tough nowadays. There's so much competition because of technology that there are so many great singers, and they're easily seen now, and great guitar players and great musicians. The competition's a lot harder than it was, let's say, back in the 80s and 70s. That's for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree. There's it's crowded now for sure, but luckily, some people who.
Hello? I could be having an issue. Are you still there, Geoffrey? Sometimes these cell phones are a little finicky.
Yeah, I am. Maybe I'll move with it. But I just think it's with you all the years and all the changes that your band made. Like I know our band ends through just by painting in some of our pros, and we lost some fans along the way and gained some new ones. And but it's right up until we ended the band 2 or 3 years ago. We could still draw fairly well, and we sure appreciated the fans that gave us that kind of longevity.
Absolutely amazing. And were you guys? Let me ask. To start with Barney, what were you guys touring right up to COVID? And what was the last moment you realized we need to shut this down and go home? Where were you guys both at that point? Let me start with Barn.
Well, I was on my way to the Junos, and
wow,
everything. Things had been certain things I was planning had been kind of canceled before that, but it was going to go on. I wasn't nominated for anything, but I was going to go play in the hockey game, and cool. Just hang out, and then just on my way to the airport, it was my agent and my manager called and said it's canceled, and then it was definitely a strange time, and then when in the course of days, all my slate of shows that I had coming up through to the summer, I would say, just everything started completely being canceled and falling off, and there was, it was an interesting time. I mean, there was a certain kind of relief in a certain way, because there's the way music these days, it's so much about live performance in terms of earning a living from music, and you're always having to kind of hustle and accept gigs and travel, and so that I have to admit that there was a bit of relief of stopping that for a while after years and years of doing it. I don't know how Geoffrey felt there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Geoffrey. Same with you.
Yeah, same.
What were you doing?
Just coming. I was actually in.
Oh, Geoffrey, I think we're losing you again. Maybe if you can just move these darn cell phones. So unpredictable.
Okay, I'll move back. I know.
Sorry, Jeff.
That's okay. I was doing a tour with the Irish Rovers, and we were just approaching the end of the tour, and we were playing. We were on it. We were actually at Casino Rama, the big casino there, and
wow.
We got the word that the show wasn't going to go ahead. And we had one show in Chatham, I think, after that, and that also got canceled. And our road manager had to scramble and find flights home for all the guys because half the band lives in Ireland and half the band is where the rest of us are all over North America. So he had to sort out about 12 flights to get everybody home the next day, earlier than we had anticipated. We thought we had about 4 more days, 2 more gigs, and then a couple of days just to hang out, but it all ended very quickly, and while I was in Casino Rama, the band are mutual friends of Barney and mine. The guys from Chilliwack were there, and I think their show had also been canceled the night before. So we met them in the lounge of the casino and had a drink with them, and then everybody kind of went their separate ways. And as Barn said too, I did feel a bit of relief just from crazy schedules, trying to work out the calendar between the different bands I'm in, and I'm sure for Barn, the different projects he's in. It sometimes gets a bit difficult to balance everything. So this sort of forced downtime was at first certainly most welcome, and of course we are dealing with trying to figure out how serious is this thing, and we've never been through anything like this. So. And then I think after a while, we all got restless again and started to look for things to do. And everybody got very creative with Zoom and doing online things. And I guess that together writers. And we did have a music was less about being on planes and going places. It was more just local, and it would be nice for a change.
Well, it's definitely, it's good to be that busy before COVID happened, as you were speaking of trying to juggle all the things you have going on. And that's just wonderful that you're touring and being able to even do all that stuff. And I'm sure it's going to get back to that eventually. Guys, let's play this next song off of your album Ranch Riders, new album released September 17th, 2021. For all the folks out there, please go and check out Ranch Riders. You can look on the web, type in Ranch Riders. I did earlier on Google. It comes right up. There's some lovely videos of these songs as well. And I think, one thing I want to ask you guys before we play this song, you guys are sitting on a trailer there. It kind of looks like winterish. Was it cold?
It was a beautiful sunny day.
Wow.
Yeah, it was that time of year. I think it was April. Snow leaves late up here, and so we had just picture perfect weather, and we kind of we sort of I know the filmmakers liked the fact that there was some snow on the field, and it created these nice contrasts. So
sure did. So it wasn't cold. Yeah. Well, that's good because it kind of looked like it was a little bit chilly. So I had to ask. Folks, I have Barney Bentall and Geoffrey Kelly on the show this evening. Absolute pleasure to have you both again. Let's play a song off of you guys' new album. The new album is called Ranch Riders. Folks, get out there, check it out. We are going to hear the song called Fred Neil right here on this House of Musicians on Reality Radio 101. Welcome back, fine listener. I have Geoffrey Kelly and Barney Bentall on tonight's program, and what a pleasure having you both. I want to ask you what songs you are partial to. What's your favorite songs individually on the album? I really like Fred Neil, which is one of the songs that Barn picked earlier. I love the double acoustic walk down. I think one might be chord and one might be a walk down with notes. I'm not sure, but I just love the walk down in that song. Barney, let me start with you. What do you have a favorite song on that album?
Oh, I guess
they're all your babies.
Yeah. I love Bonaparte Plateau. Chilcotin, I think the opener is just a wonderful piece too. Really, I in all the kind of froggy ones we did too, it all flows together in this wonderful sort of way. But yeah, I don't know. That would be hard. That's like asking me which kid of mine I like the best.
I know, and so many people have often said that. Which child do you like the best? Geoffrey, how about you? Same thing?
Well, I think it's kind of the same thing, but it's sort of a friend of Barnes who runs in the Caribou Chilcotin region. He was on a whole group. Wild horses was running beside. Oh, sorry.
Yep, it's okay. Go ahead.
He saw a whole group of wild horses running along the side of the road as he was riding his bike, and he filmed them. And then he put the song Chilcotin as the background music, and he put it up on Instagram. And I thought it was pretty beautiful. Wow. And it's kind of made my day just seeing that married to that imagery was like just the most gorgeous thing. We have this might have some potential as that kind of soundtrack sort of music, and that sort of happened very organically. And I can see that being possibly in its future, some of that kind of stuff.
Definitely inspiring. There's no doubt about it. Let me ask you guys this question. Actually, there's a segment of the show I like to do called, Well, Gary LaBar, what do you think?
Let me tell you what I think. With the Celtic influence, I'm surprised that Geoff and Barney are not in Ireland on a tour, But anyways,
that's bad, Gary.
I know, it's pretty bad. I love the Boron, I think, in the songs, and it's got a beautiful Celtic feel. I love what you guys are doing. Wow, man. And Geoff, who's got some Irish roots in his music, do you remember a band called Horselips?
Sure do.
Yeah, they were...
Yeah, and
Go ahead, sir.
They're still going.
They're still going.
They still play. They regroup every now and then, and they'll do shows, mostly in Ireland still. But, I've got a bunch of their vinyl records and a few CDs, and they had a great record where they really dabbled in traditional music called The Unfortunate Cup of Tea, which is one of my favorite ones, where they actually play. Most of the stuff was kind of Celtic rock, but that album they sort of focused more on the traditional side of things, and there's some really nice stuff on there. But Barry Devlin, I think, is the fiddle player. They're a great band. Yeah,
absolutely. And I saw them. I'm born and raised in New York. I saw them in New York. I got their original albums. Love the band back in the day. But you guys, your stuff, your instrumental stuff has such a great Celtic feel to it. And I love that type of music. So I'm wishing both of you the best, that you stay healthy, and hopefully you can get out to do some touring in the very near future.
Well, thank you, Gary. That's very kind.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. And thanks for helping promote this lovely project that we're very proud of, and we want to get out to as many people as we can.
Absolutely. You guys should be proud of it. The instrumentals, all the instruments are amazing. You guys sound wonderful. And we really are honored to have you both on the show. And we're going to continue to follow both of your progress and stay in contact, and we'll see where you guys are at in a year or two from now, and possibly get you back on the show. So congratulations on the new album, and we wish you all the best with it. Thank you for coming on the show, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Barry.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
And to the listener, I say thank you for being here. Always dance and sing, and let the music bring your soul to the surface for all the world to see. Until next time, have a shuffle your feet kind of week, and good night. You've been listening to This House of Musicians radio show on Reality Radio 101.